Next, we've got Grey Mining, Jardine, Managing Director. Glenn is a mining executive with experience growing resource companies from early stage exploration through to operations. He's worked across precious metals, base metals, bulk commodities in underground and open pit environments. Glenn joined De Grey in May last year and leads the team which delivered one of the largest maiden resources for an Australian gold project in recent history. Glenn tells me he's a far north Queenslander, not to be confused with a standard Queenslander. He's also a Collingwood supporter. So from an Irishman who barracks for the Eagles, I'm not sure which is worse, Glenn, but we'll welcome you to the stage and yeah, best of luck. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks very much for that introduction. Obviously, coming from North Queensland and ending up supporting Collingwood, there's a bit of a story there, but obviously it involves a lot of romance and adventure, and if anyone wants to catch up on that later, we can do that. I just wanted to thank the Eagles selection panel for being kind to us on the weekend. I was a bit worried when Collingwood was pulling kids out of school to play for us, but I'm grateful that they sent their reserve grade team over. Okay, so we may make some forward-looking statements today, and if you can just look on our website for the disclaimer. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work, their elders past, present and emerging. We've got a great relationship with the TO groups on the ground that we work on, and we're strengthening that all the time in terms of our relationship and also our internal capability. We're really focused on being transparent and open, and all of us going together on the pathway that is De Grey. Just a quick overview here. The company's got a market capitalisation of around 1.7 billion, and the most important thing, of course, is that we've also got cash in the bank, well funded. There's been transformation in the shareholder base over time since the discovery, obviously, and we've got a very strong shareholder and supportive shareholder in DGO Gold, as well as having attracted a lot of institutions both in Australia and overseas. I won't go into the slide on the directors in too much detail here, but it's a very experienced board for the stage that the company's at, and also what the company has in front of it, and you can read more about the board and the experience that they've got on our website. Okay, so the Pilbara redefined. For those of you who've been following the De Grey story, the mantra has been that you'll never find a large gold deposit in the Pilbara. Obviously, that's changed now, and that's due to the hard work and foresight of the geology team. Andy, Phil, Alan, Rohan more recently, and they've really flipped that on its head with the discovery, particularly of intrusion-style mineralisation. And as I talk later, you'll understand why that intrusion-style of deposit is just so valuable. Everyone will tell you this, and you've heard it recently from Tony, but the infrastructure that we've got there in the Pilbara is absolutely fantastic. We've got existing mains power, gas pipelines, communications, roads in immediate vicinity of the project, and we're blessed in that respect. The key themes of the presentation are really around the resource and the maiden resource that we released, and also the growth that we see there. I won't be touching too much today on studies and the production potential that we see at Hemi. We're planning to release the results of a scoping study this quarter, and we'll cover more of that in detail then. But due to time constraints, I'll really deal with the resource. A couple of things to point out, though, and we're at pains to state this, that the Hemi maiden resource is the start. We see a lot of growth there, and I'll demonstrate that further today. But also, it's really still early days. I mean, it's a big maiden resource, but the guys have really only been at this for about 15 months, and we're learning things new every day about the geochemical and geophysical signatures of these intrusion-style deposits, and we're looking to apply that and are applying that around Hemi and on the regional tenements. We will continue to grow this resource at a rapid rate, and for those who haven't kept up with the metrics from the resource announcement, this resource was growing at the rate of 450,000 ounces a month at a cost of $8.50 an ounce, which is absolutely astonishing. And that's the rate that we've seen. We can't guarantee that that'll continue in the future, but obviously that's one of our targets. And we want to maximise long-term value by continuing to conduct project studies and build our organisational capability, with the ultimate goal of Hemi being a Tier 1 gold producer. So just onto the resource, we talk about the 9 million ounce Melanoma resource, and that comprises the 6.8 million ounces at Hemi, and then 2.2 million ounces from the regional deposits. A couple of things to point out on this slide. One is the grade of those regional deposits at 2 grams and 1.4 grams. Often those regional deposits get overlooked, but they will significantly and meaningfully contribute to a production centre at Hemi. And then, of course, on the Hemi resource, we continue to see that growing, and we also, at this stage, have quite a high percentage of measured and indicated across that global resource and indicated at Hemi. So, you know, that rate of growth at Hemi also includes about 40% of indicated drilling. So it's been, you know, quite an exercise. Just onto the grade at Hemi, that resource was undertaken at a cut-off grade of 0.3. The regional resources were done at a cut-off grade historically of 0.5. But we're aware that people in the industry will look at the scale of Hemi and make their own judgments around what sort of cut-off grade might apply to a potential production operation there. So we put out this table in the resource statement, and as you can see, as the cut-off grade increases, the contained gold doesn't drop very much at all, and the average grade increases quite well. Okay, so 9 million ounces and growing. This is the Hemi resource, including the regional deposits, so 9 million ounces, and we're just showing that relative to some of the deposits, resources that already exist within WA, pointing out those that are producers and those that are in either exploration or development phase. So as you can see already, it's at a really good scale. And we'd also like to point out that there's been some great discoveries historically in WA, both at Gruyere and Tropicana. And what we're saying here is that if you don't believe us that we're going to grow these resources, you can believe people who've been there before recently and who've had great discoveries and quality discoveries. And you can see that both of those deposits almost doubled in 5 years. So, you know, what will Hemi and Melanoma look like in 5 years? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so what makes Hemi deposits and intrusion-style deposits so valuable? Certainly scale and jurisdiction. It's a rare asset that we have here, and we're going to treat it properly, grow it and look after it, and also conduct, you know, our activities in exploration and going into production in a very sensible manner. We have thick ore zones, so we get really high ounces per vertical metre. There's a slide in the announcement of the mineral resource that talks about 25,000 ounces per vertical metre, which is a nice number. I've spoken about the rapid growth. I'll go through a couple of slides shortly that'll show you how amenable the Hemi-style mineralisation is to, you know, bulk, low-cost mining. I'll also touch on recent discoveries at Jukon and Eagle and show you an example of the continued growth we see at Jukon, and also speak a little bit about the exploration potential that we see across the entire tenement belt. So Brolga is a great example of, you know, the intrusion-style mineralisation at Hemi and why these sorts of deposits are so valuable. So, you know, you can see there really consistent grade, thick, mineralised intersections close to surface, and you can imagine, you know, a nice open pit wrapping around, you know, the upper couple of 100 metres there at Brolga. So that's why, you know, these deposits, when we find them, are so valuable. It also gives you an indication as when we latch onto one of these deposits, why we can grow the resource base so quickly. So just on to Jukon and Eagle. This is a long section through Jukon, Eagle and Crow, and you can see the depth that we've been able to drill at Crow. But in the resource estimate that we put out, we'd only really included the upper couple of 100 metres that was covered by RC drilling. That section there doesn't include any diamond drilling, which we're undertaking at the moment. And we recently put out this intersection. I think that was last week. And you can see that that's an intersection at Jukon, and 173 metres at 1.5, sitting just outside the resource boundary, and then two intersections of 99 metres at 1.1 and 173 metres at 1.6 below that again, open at depth. So, as I was saying, when you get intersections like that and that sort of continuity of mineralisation, that's why we can grow these resources so quickly. Those holes were drilled after the cut-off date for the resource estimate, and so obviously they're going to add to the endowment. A couple of things to point out, that 173.7 at 1.5 included just under 60 metres at 2.2, and the 173 at 1.6 included just under 23 metres at 5.5 and 10 metres at 5.4. One other interesting thing on that section is we don't show air core results on these sections when we put out RC and diamond results, because it just clutters it up too much. But we'd conducted air core drilling on this section, and none of the air core holes had intersected mineralised intrusion. We had one air core hole that intersected the intrusion, but it wasn't mineralised. And we had another air core hole just above that 99 at 1.1 that intersected about 1 metre at 0.2 grams in sediments. And so now what we're seeing is we're getting these intrusions sitting underneath sediments that may or may not have shown any particular signal in terms of assay results to that point in time. So we're really excited about that and what that means for Greater Hemi. Speaking of which, obviously we're looking for more. This slide shows in orange, pink, known intrusions around Hemi. The brighter pink shapes are suspected intrusions, and then the pink dots is drilling that we've conducted to date from surface. The grey dots is air core drilling that we've conducted, and obviously, that analogy that we looked at there with Jukon, we're going back now and having a look at all those air core results and seeing, well, are we picking anything up in those air core holes that we may have missed? Is there another intrusion sitting under some air core results that we may have previously, not taken enough interest in? I'll just go back to that previous slide. That shows collars at surface, and as well as trying to expand the footprint at Hemi, we also need to look at depth. So that's the amount of drilling that we've done below 300 metres, and it's just tiny. So clearly we've got a lot more diamond drilling to do, and clearly there's a lot more upside at depth in terms of this resource. On a regional scale, we've now got a couple of rigs operating outside of Hemi. We've got 12 rigs on site at the moment, 4 air core, 4 RC and 4 diamond. 1 air core rig and 1 RC rig is now operating outside of Greater Hemi. It started at Calvert, went down to Gillies, and we're looking to get into the Gemas area and Charity Well. We've just had heritage clearances over Gemas, so hopefully we'll be out there shortly. But clearly we see a lot of potential outside of Greater Hemi. It's a 150k long tenement belt, and we've got a lot of work to follow up there. Okay, I spoke earlier about growing our organisation capability. We've been growing that starting last year and moving into this year in terms of risk, health, safety and environmental management, community relations. We've also brought on some really experienced project studies guys in Rod Smith and Noel O'Brien. So we're just building that capability internally. Also employed recently Peter Canterbury this year as our CFO. And we've got a really experienced exploration, project studies and obviously project development group here. And we'll continue to do that as we go ahead with exploration as well as studies and development. And just quickly, this is our growth strategy. I've spoken about it during today's presentation, but obviously we've already demonstrated Tier 1 scale resource. We're going to continue to grow resources at below industry average cost. We're building our organisation and capability, and our ultimate goal is to become a Tier 1 gold producer at Hemi.
Thank you very much, Glenn. We're just on time there, so if you guys have questions for Glenn, you can see him at his booth. Thank you. We're stuck for time. Yep, thanks.